always like a huge surprise if it's on. Okay, it's on. Perfect. Hi, Amber. Welcome to Winter with Grace.
Thank you, Grace. Happy to be here.
Amazing. Okay, so I feel like you have such a really interesting background. You were born in Hong Kong, and like you were in a reality TV show, and then you founded a company. You got into Y Combinator later on, and then like now you're a founder. So to start off the show, I'd love for the audience to learn more about like maybe what is like a core lessons that you've learned in the reality show era that you took away as a founder and fund manager.
Okay, yeah. So I think I've always had the contrarian, like outside of you. Grew up in Hong Kong, lived in the Caribbean, lived in Hong Kong, lived in England, was coding, creating things as a kid, constantly playing around with things on the internet. And that eventually led me to, at one point, co-creating this very successful TV show in the UK. And was really a fantastic time because there were no product placement laws on reality TV in the UK, and I had an e-commerce startup at the time.
Mhm.
So if you can imagine the huge amount of free publicity and organic customer acquisition that brought back in 2010,
Mhm.
long time ago, it was massive, and really kind of led me to see the underbelly of like, what does it mean to be a fan? What does it mean to garner influence? What does it mean to be authentic when you create and like harness distribution at like
Mhm.
that level of mass media scale? So yeah, it was a really awesome experience when I was like 20. So
Mhm.
yeah, and then obviously that led me to the next venture, led me to Y Combinator. And so I think my philosophy is constant evolution and curiosity, and I suppose just keeping that outsider contrarian mindset, which is very useful when you are investing in consumer founders.
For sure. I wanted to learn more about like so I saw that you have such interesting experience as an intern. So you intern at Vogue and Hermes. Um, like how do you even get a job in there? Because I've ever met any intern from Hermes. Like I've never said I've never seen people on LinkedIn have that resume, but I feel like I'm so fascinated by that journey. I feel like that must be like a super popular job. Um, I guess like how do you it sounds like you are like a really you have built a strong network very early on. Like, is there any tips for people who are listening who is like trying to breaking into a specific industry like fashion or something super competitive?
Yeah, I mean, I was really big on internships when I was in high
Mhm.
school, and age 14, 15, 16. If I wasn't building my own things, I was like, well, I need to somehow intern at Vogue, and I need to somehow intern
Uh-huh.
at Wednesday, which was one of the original, I think it's still going, like digital marketing groups that kind of helped Net-a-Porter and Mr. Porter get off the ground. And a lot of what I was doing when I was, at school was emailing people out of the blue, sending people letters. I once sent ad agency half a cookie with my resume as the other half. And so nothing was too weird and bold for me to want to just go and get the experience and
Mhm.
connect with people. And whenever I'm talking to young like men or women today, it's like, well, what are you doing to stand out? Like, how are you truly proving your expertise and your point of view is going to be valuable? So, a lot of perseverance early on, and early network building through, I guess, what has been a very untraditional path in
Mhm.
venture investing. But there are a lot of kind of like key themes that I see in terms of like building network, connecting people that are very important to the success of this job.
For sure. I wonder, so like, um, I want to quickly touch upon like your company Zyper that eventually got acquired by Discord, and like
Yeah.
obviously you have a lot of like passion and perseverance. I wonder like how like do you consider yourself as like an amazing coder or like basically like I guess like on what level of technical expertise do you consider you have, and then how do you kind of like find maybe a team that can like complements your like strengths and weaknesses in
Yeah.
that era.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I would consider myself non-technical. I was a non-technical solo
Mhm.
founder when I got into YC. And
That's a huge Like, that's a huge, like, green
Phenomenal.
flag because I feel like that's an accomplishment to got into YC. As a non-technical person and a solo founder, I feel like that's, like, just, like, the top 0.5% or something or less. How do you convince people to do that? I feel like since you already sold a company early on, that definitely makes a huge, um, like, green flag early on, but, like, I wonder, like, what do you think was, like, the thing that got you through the hoops, basically?
I don't know. Sam Altman was on my interview panel, and I think, what I remember of that is really digging into, well, who are your customers? Who are your users? And this was in 2018 when the idea of building community software or like harnessing fandom was quite new. Like crypto community software hadn't really sort of taken off at the scale that it did in 2021. And so it was a lot of education. And I think perhaps what I maybe got across well in that interview was just an understanding of the user base and the customer expectations and why there is this change in consumer behavior in terms of everyday community and fans being such an important distribution and retention kind of channel for any business.
Mhm,
And so obviously when we started speaking to Discord, it was kind of like match made in heaven because my whole philosophy around like bringing people together to find belonging, whether that was around creators or brands through Zyper, is very much I think what Discord offers hundreds of millions of people is that sense of belonging. And it was a awesome kind of harmony.
I wonder, like, so I know that at that point you already had a lot of brands who are using your platform. How do you onboard brands like the big like food and beverages brand or like fashion brands to be on your platform early on as a startup? I feel like a lot of listeners may be founders and like they're having challenge to land even like one client. Not nonetheless like a bunch of clients that are big names.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, enterprise sales is obviously very different from, self-service or SMBs or like selling to other Y Combinator companies. And so I focused very heavily on that in addition to building the product. But if I'm being honest, like we had a very strong sales team. And I mean, I think what's great about going into collaborating with kind of some of the customers that we did have, like a L'Oreal or like a Nestle, is they typically have innovation arms that are very open to the latest and greatest that's coming out of Silicon Valley. And so we tended to cultivate, great relationships with people who are leading those arms to get trials off the ground with very clear success metrics for how would that convert into a longer term contract. And what, then it's a land and expand strategy. If they have 100 brands in their portfolio, if you can prove that with one, then wow, ideally you can forecast that you'll get, the other 99. And then you go into other international markets. And so I think at one point we were working with Betty Crocker, the cake mix, to have like 7 or 8 different fan communities all over the world in all different countries, Dubai, Germany, and people can come together through their love of baking. And that was awesome. So I think there's so many key parts to successful sales blueprints and tracking people down. But I think a lot of it is motivating and hiring a great sales team. And then being able to work well with whoever your kind of stakeholder is within the big company.
Totally. I wonder, I wanna, like, double click on the, you mentioned about, like, having a great, like, success metrics and, like, knowing at what point they would convert. I feel like that's maybe, like, the most challenging part because I feel like a lot of people maybe, I guess, like, a lot of people don't know how to run the conversation, so maybe they've done, like, 5 free trials for a certain brand and they never convert or
Never. I think always charge, in my opinion. Unless it's a consumer facing, like more freemium product, like
Mhm,
that's obviously a fantastic business model. But I
mhm,
think if you are an enterprise startup, which is not what Patron
mhm,
focuses on, but just from my experience there is that people should see value from day one and be happy
mhm.
to pay. So yeah.
How do you like So, like, I feel like some of the bigger brands, may or, like, not bigger brands, but maybe, like, the people work at the bigger brands think they have more leverage. So, from the pricing perspective, like, I feel like being a startup always is a disadvantage. Um, Point, like, not always, but, like, most times, I wonder how would you kind of, like, position the company's value to, like, the enterprise team. Like, for example, let's say if they are trying to get like a really um like lower pricing, like price point of your product and services, or for example, they started maybe introducing to other partners that they're partnering with to like essentially asking for like free work. Or I guess like I feel like the enterprise sales level, we could probably spend like another podcast to talk about how to
We have
sell to
all of our
enterprise.
yeah.
But I guess, like, I'm sure there's, like, a lot of, startup that are having the challenge of, like, being able to effectively, creating a sales strategy to the enterprise. If you have any tips on maybe, like, beyond, like, success metrics and, like or, like, maybe if you could break into detail on, like, how would you walk through the conversation at very early on to onboard your first, like, design partner or, like, big clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think figuring out, which vertical are you going after, like which
Mhm,
niche.
mhm,
Um, it's much easier to choose like one category, for example, food, like D2C, gaming, whatever the
mhm,
specific niche is, and then go and understand the entire landscape of potential customers there. And then
mhm,
go and understand who are the people that control the budgets of those customers. I
mhm,
think there's so much diligence that you can do ahead of time before you even do any sales outreach
mhm,
whatsoever. Truly understanding you could be an expert in one market, let's say beauty. So who is the top player in that market right now?
mhm,
One of my angel investments is first angel investor into an amazing consumer company called Vacation, which is now one of the top selling D2C sunscreen brands in America.
mhm,
And for example, they just really focus on one category, and then you as the enterprise sales solution should focus on. They are a market leader right now. All the other big sunscreen legacy brands are looking to them as to what to do. If you are the technology that is servicing them to increase customer acquisition, marketing, retention, community,
mhm.
anything, it's going to be so much easier for you to knock down the doors of Hawaiian Tropic or any of the other things, because you're already working with the hottest, best in play that they will be looking at every day internally from a competition point of view.
Mhm,
So I think that's one effective strategy is like doing a market map and understanding who's the top player in that category at the time and making sure that you're the one that is the technology partner for that top player. And typically they are startups, so they're more willing to try things, and you can start at a smaller scale with the notion that that's going to open those bigger enterprise
mhm,
doors for you. And so that was a pretty successful one for us. But actually, Nike was one of our earliest customers when we were in Y Combinated. And
mhm.
kind of funny story, we were working out of our garage in Palo Alto, as you do. And
Mhm.
we kind of ordered sushi burrito for lunch for the Nike team who'd come to visit us. And we didn't have any like napkins or serviettes or anything. So I just gave everybody loot like toilet roll. Like, there's some very funny moments along the way, but I tell that story because ultimately it's all like human relationships. And
Mhm,
so even when we were in YC, we were, inviting people to come to the garage, like,
mhm.
to see and to be close to what we were building. And so I think that's always something good to remember.
For sure. In terms of like landing a Nike of the world, like since like, at that point you may not have a Nike in the back pocket to go after a Nike, how do you kind of like position yourself in a unique position to close like maybe that first big client?
I think it's really about doing your research and knowing, okay, what like have you listened to Nike's quarterly reports? Like what's important? That's quarterly
Mhm,
earnings, like what's working right now and what isn't. Um who is the right person in a massive organization like that to
Mhm.
green light something? And again,
Mhm.
like maybe it's the innovation team that you start with,
Mhm.
and maybe, you know, you look at what they've done previously. What have they launched? Like, how could that help? And I think it's about doing that level of detailed research to then be able to personalize whatever your pitch is. Obviously, the same as, you know, any startup founder wanting to, you know, raise a seed round, like a
Mhm.
warm intro always helps.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's where, you know, VC funds can be very helpful, is with their network and introductions. And I think, you know, that's definitely something we pushed on as well, is useful angels or like our seed investors who could actually open some of those doors. But yeah, I think a lot of that is like planning and then making sure that your solution is like very well tailored to whatever the company is truly focused on.
Mhm.
Um, Ask questions, you know, like you'd be surprised at how many founders early on like aren't asking enough questions of their customers or their users. And ultimately, you know, from the patron lens, like we're looking at, okay, do you know who your obsessed early community is? Like, who are the ones that are going to be like, you know, the beta player community, whether that's for a, you know, like a UGC like MMO, or whether that's for a credit card like maxing company. Like who are those people? And I think demonstrating that you truly know your community and your users and your customers is so important, and speaking to them as often as possible.
Totally. I want to switch gear a little bit. We chat so much about your like operational background, and I wanted to learn more about like since like before we jump on this, like we just briefly touch up on like the Patreon platform. So for the
Yeah.
audience who are not familiar with the fund, would you mind to share a little bit more about like the gaming aspect, like the maybe the overall landscape of gaming, and then what are the specific focus that you guys are passionate about, and then maybe we can jump into what is Patreon platform and how does it like help the fund to generate amazing um, funder leads and everything.
Yeah, sure. I guess, well, so a little bit of background. So I've been a founder my
Mhm,
entire career, until we were acquired by Discord, where I spent a couple of years on leading out a variety of different initiatives there, and having a really fantastic time doing a lot of angel investing. And that's when I got to know Brian and Jason, who had previously been at Riot Games together, and Jason and First Mark before that, and had this really compelling vision that the future of consumer technology is going to be shaped by games. And we
mhm,
have a whole new generation of kids who are growing up playing Roblox every day, who are on Discord, who are on Fortnite. And I saw that. And for me, it was really eye opening to see that the definition of being a gamer is so much broader now. You know,
mhm,
you can interact with, you can go to Nintendo World, you can watch The Last of Us, and
mhm,
that's all gaming IP. And so I think when we met, we kind of shared that philosophy. And yeah, I joined Patron full time after being a venture partner in 2023. And we're an institutional seed fund. We lead seed rounds across gaming and consumer startups. And I think founders like partnering with us because we bring that level of gaming expertise and network effects to, whether it's, you know, a game studio or whether it is, you know, a consumer or AI startup. I think we think that every consumer founder is ultimately going to need gaming expertise in the next
mhm.
5 to 10 years. So how can we, you know, really help them with that is our goal. Um, and then, yeah, I guess one of the things that I really learned as a seed stage founder myself was, how can you really get value out of your VC partner, right? Like every fund, every kind of partner tries to be helpful, tries to be value add as an investor. But what really helps seed stage founders, and is something that I'm constantly trying to build on. And one of those things we've built is the Patron platform, which today lives in a private Discord. So all of our founders can reach Brian, Jason, or I in the Discord every single day. They can speak with each other. We do expert workshops in there like every other week with sales leaders, game designers, you know, marketing experts, social media experts. And I think having that expert network and then allowing founders to learn from each other and those experts in a kind of casual environment is so helpful. So yeah, that's been kind of stage one of Patron platform.
I wonder, so, like, is there like, since, like, back in time you were, like, after your company was acquired by Discord, maybe can you share a little bit more about, like, what was the journey like working at Discord? Because Discord was definitely a rocket ship on its own, and, like, the crypto industry and gaming industry, spend, like, so much time in Discord. What would you say were, like, some unique insights that you have gained through that era that kind of inspire you to, like, build up the platform for gaming founders now at your fund?
Hmm, hmm. So I mean, yeah, Discord was definitely and is still a rocket ship back when we kind of joined at the end of 2020. I think that I mean, gosh, learned so many things there. Such a fantastic team and very, just so interesting because Discord has such a loyal fan base of
Mhm,
gamers. And then you also have this influx of new folks who are maybe coming not just because they're playing games with their friends, but
mhm,
actually they're buying sneakers or they're trading stocks. And Discord has become like that de facto third place home for them. So I think one of the things that's interesting that I look at in founders now is okay, that's your starting market. Like how
mhm,
big can that be? But then like how big can it be when you expand beyond that into other verticals whilst continuing to serve that initial loyal base? I think what's great about gaming is obviously it's growing year on year, just unstoppably. And so I think we're seeing like more and more consumers interact with gaming IP at
mhm,
every level, whether it's casual, whether it's movies, whether it's entertainment, whether it's just lifestyle brands adopting gaming and just broadly more consumer apps. Like, I don't know if you've seen on Google search around the Olympics, the pages were much more interactive in the search results. Instagram started overlaying, more interactive elements on top of static posts.
mhm,
All of that feels very game-like.
mhm,
So it's, I think, what I observed at Discord is this sort of shift towards experiences that, will cater to wider consumers. Like gamers are such early adopters of the earliest technology. And I think that's such an exciting space to be in as an investor because you get to see almost like 4 or 5 years ahead of where the average consumer might be.
mhm.
So yeah.
I wonder, like, so, I feel like you have launched some really amazing brands partnership for Discord. Um, can you share a little bit more on that end on, like, what are some, um insights on, like, which brand you feel like would match the most with Discord from the very beginning? Because I know that you guys collab with, like, Jack in the Box, Chipotle, like, and, a bunch of other brands. How do you think about, like, what would make the most sense for the user at Discord, and how do you kind of, like, um, establish some sort of, like, partnership that, like, basically communicate the message of, like, it's important to join Discord versus, like,
Yeah.
other platform.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Discord is doing so much at the moment. It feels like some big things are coming in terms of like discovery and
Mhm,
being able to actually have Discord's user base like find what you're building. I think we still encourage all of our founders that we work with. A lot of founders come to us because of the Discord expertise that we
mhm,
have in terms of, how might you design a server? How might you cross promote it? How might you offer kind of freemium AI experiences within Discord that then push to a paid version on your app? And so I think why should you be on Discord? I think a lot of the younger generation live
mhm,
there. So meet your
mhm,
consumers where you are. And frankly, it's just one of the best tools to actually build community.
mhm,
I think early on, if you're building out in the open, if you want early users to dog food your product, give you immediate feedback, like there really isn't a better tool to do that. And yeah, so we're big fans and constantly, love to see what they're pushing out, and also love to just meet founders who are building amazing experiences on top of Discord. And I think that we've seen, whether it's with Midjourney or Viggle or Shaped,
Mhm.
everything that is at the forefront of kind of like AI friends, new types of interaction is being built on top of Discord. So
Mhm.
I think it's important that we're there every day.
I wonder, I like really I feel like community is definitely extremely important. How do you kind of translate that into like numbers? Because I feel like whenever I'm speaking to like any B2B brand or like just generally any collaborations in general, there should be some sort of like metrics people are using to evaluate if this is worthwhile. So how would you kind of like navigate the qualitative kind of benchmark? Is there like beyond like maybe a NPS score of like a certain event or like certain partnerships, or like how would you kind of like go show the client or like the partnership side that like this is going to be a really effective collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I talk to our like founders about frequently is, what is the ROI on community? Why are you doing this? It
Mhm,
is sort of very hard to measure a
mhm,
tangible impact on the business through community. I think what I've learned through writing a book about building
mhm.
community,
Oh,
spending a lot
shout
of
out to your book, by the way.
to my book, um, is, community is an incredible retention tool. It's a
Mhm,
way for you to build loyalty to your product and use your product as a vehicle to establish friendship between your users. And when you have friendship between users, you
mhm,
have higher daily active user
mhm,
rates because they're coming not just for the product, they're coming for friendship, they're coming for belonging. And so I think when you can go down that funnel of people are coming to find, there's more meaning, you end up with a very kind of sticky user base, and that's sort of like the gold star, in my opinion, is that's really serving retention. People may come top of funnel through just hearing about how valuable the community is, and I feel like you either look at it like utility or entertainment or some kind of combination of the
mhm,
two. So why do I go to any of our founders communities? Is okay, actually I get to learn more, like there's something very useful here that's adding value information wise, or it's just incredibly entertaining and I'm here for that. And then through either of those avenues, that's where I find connection and friendship. So yeah, I think it should be a part of every product in addition to pursuing, customer acquisition paid strategies. um, and I guess trying to measure, is there an impact to people who are in a community? Do they buy your product more?
mhm,
Do they use your product more? And I think what we measured at Zyper and certainly to an extent at Discord was that, yes, it does have a very tangible impact on
mhm,
average order values, like average time spent in the app, etc. So yeah, and I think there are also different ways to structure it in that if people have this misconception that community needs to be always on. It should be always
mhm,
on, you're always in there. And that is just not true. It can be open and closed like a store. It doesn't have to
mhm,
be always on. You can make it more event based. And I think those are very successful communities too that actually are only open for a certain amount of time or people come together around certain events.
mhm,
But yeah, more in the book, where you can learn through all of these
mhm,
amazing CEOs that I interviewed
mhm,
um, across the decades, really, around how community has evolved
mhm,
online. And there's a lot of very interesting patterns from, Club Penguin, Second Life, all the way through to Discord Reddit around what makes a good community and what helps kind of create very successful technology companies that have community in the DNA.
For sure. I wanted to like ask for the audience, since like I feel like a lot of people may have been, they have like run a community before. Like for example, they created Discord group or like WhatsApp group, or in somewhere they dragged maybe call it like 50 people in that industry into a group, and like slowly the group may die down. Like how would you kind of navigate that kind of situation? First of all, like to build a community, who should be in your community and what kind of engagement at the very early on should you intentionally create versus like later on like it became more organic? Because I feel like most of the I wouldn't say Discord because I feel like most WhatsApp group I feel like Discord is like pretty fairly active. People are very active, but maybe it's because like I was in a lot of crypto group. So but for the WhatsApp group I'm in, for maybe like people who are having a certain expertise, like for example, if you're a content creator or something, like I feel like all the groups mostly like slowly just dies down when there's no one actively engaged, like creating some sort of content in the group. I
Yeah.
wonder what's your like suggestions or like insights you could share with the audience on like how do people a pick who should be the community member and
Mm.
b like how to like keep them actively discuss something or like just like having some sort of activeness in the group.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, gosh, so much to say here in terms of architecting and deciding, who are
Mhm,
the first 100 people that you invite. They set the culture of the community from day one. Think
mhm,
about it like a house party. You've got to have like a great host or like a couple of hosts or great
mhm,
moderators that essentially welcome you to the house party,
mhm,
say, Grace, you got to meet this group, you Amber, you got to meet
mhm,
that group. Like they show you where to go to find other people and they know who the people are in the early community. So I think identifying those hosts early on
mhm,
is great and giving them responsibility. And that, by the way, as a CEO and founder, might be just be you.
mhm,
Like you need to greet every person that comes in and introduce them. And that first impression when you land in a WhatsApp group or wherever is so important because you don't want to feel like, hello, like 1,000 people are here. Like
mhm,
intimidating. So I think that you, as the founder of the community, take that responsibility. And then outside of that, start small. I used to say it's kind of like Disneyland. Like you don't need 1,000 rides from the beginning. You just need one ride, and then work with your early community. Oh, like, what ride should we have next? Let's do this one. And so I think building the space with your community and users is similarly to how you would consider building the product or taking feedback around different levels in the game or whatever it is. You should bring them along for the journey. So I think people get it wrong when they over architect like this a
mhm.
Discord server or a WhatsApp group too much without having had that organic community input to then iterate on the space. So yeah, I think that would be my advice there is you need to start small, have a good host, that might be you, know that those first impressions are important. And then in terms of keeping the chat alive, that is such a struggle. And so it's back to that earlier point of like, what is the right forum for your community to live? Is it Discord? Is it WhatsApp? Is it a email newsletter? Like where is that? And then, it's kind of creating consistency. So, like you are with your pot of money and PST every day, what's happening in the community to drive people back every day. So creating some type of rituals is another really good strategy.
For sure. I think during the crypto era, I've run a WhatsApp community or like LinkedIn WhatsApp community for people. Like we used to meet like on Friday night every week, and then there were people would wake up at like 2 a.m. in their time because they live in Europe or somewhere else, like to
Yeah.
jump on. But later I feel like slowly I got really tired. I feel really bad because like I feel like also like the with the happening of like crypto crash, like people pivot onto AI or like other things, like so I think there's like a lot of shifts happening, so we kind of like stop, like it kind of like slows down a little bit. Like I wonder for the selection of people, like so I select them based on like if they would invite if they would like engage with like other people's content in the community, are they supportive, like are they generally kind instead of like promoting themselves everywhere. So like I think that was a selection criteria, but I think like I wonder if you have seen, since you have worked at Discord and as well as like you have published the book, I'm sure you have learned a lot more, I guess, like selection criterias. I wonder what would be your suggestion for people to select the right format, forum, and like the cadence of like people meeting up and if there's like a playbook for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I would say that, if you're a seed stage startup, be careful because you can really go down a rabbit hole of spending a lot of time thinking about like community, and you need to balance that with whatever the priorities are for your startup in terms of getting to the next milestone. Um, and maybe it is that if you have 100,000 or 10,000 active members in the community, that is a milestone for you to unlock for, the next venture round. I would say like top tips are, who do you want to be in the community? Who are the first 10, 100 people? What do they do? How does your community fit into their day? One of the blog posts I have on the Patron website is really about this. It's like doing that diary exercise, classic product management exercise around like, where does your product fit into the day? When are they coming to the community? It's obvious for you, they come at 9 a.m. on, every PST every day. So what time do they come, and then what do they look like? And why are they coming to you? Like, what is the utility or what is the entertainment? And then I guess like, what is the hypothesis that you have? It's like, if they join the community or maybe they pay, because there should be a high bar. I think, there's a difference between having users and then having engaged community members. And you want to have both, ideally, and so I think having some way to measure, all right, like, why are we doing this? Like, how is this leading to a priority in the milestones of the business? Okay, it's actually, we hope that 20% of our users join the community, and of those users, we show that their engagement in the product is higher, or that they're contributing to the product, or that they're paying to be in the community because they get special deals or something. So have some type of understanding of that, so that you can control it. And then I think, as we've said earlier, it's like, create some rituals. It doesn't have to be always on. You can do something that's just a moment in the day. And then just really focus on knowing how that fits in to the product. Aria is one of our portfolio companies that helps kind of couples with intimacy and trust and communication, relationship building. And it's kind of this amazing hybrid of physical product with personalized AI concierge, digital content. And the community for that lives across, a private Facebook page, and then other kind of social media channels. And I think that, you can also let community members gather themselves. Some of the best Discord servers and best communities are just run not by the brand or the company, but by the fans themselves. So I think that's another thing to think about, is could you actually empower your users and fans to set up and run the community, and you don't actually own it?
Totally. I wonder, going back to the fund a little bit, like, so for obviously, like, I feel like deal sourcing is a very important part, and building a platform really helps with that, and especially also like later on helping the portfolio company grow as well. For like, as a partner at a fund, like, how would you set KPIs for a community that you have built for the fund? And like, I guess like, in terms of like sourcing, I feel like after chatting with a lot of like fund managers, for like from emerging managers to a more established managers, I feel like a lot of people were I think the sourcing benchmark would be, will there be other investor co-invest later on for the following on runs? I wonder what would be your selection criteria when it comes to sourcing, and then how do you position your fund like uniquely to attract the best gaming founders?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we're still a new fund. Fund one was 2021, and I think, Brian, Jason, and my own background kind of speak to the gaming expertise, and I think we're sort of one of the very few like institutional seed funds that are very focused on working with exceptional gaming founders and an extension of exceptional consumer AI driven founders that are want to leverage gaming expertise. There's not a lot of funds out there that can offer consumer founders expertise in gaming, that are that kind of are able to do both. So I think we try and highlight our expertise through our podcast, our blog, our social media, and then our events and our kind of like Patron expert network. And I think when it comes to sourcing, part of that is, lucky to have a lot of inbound of exceptional founders coming to us, who may have heard about us or looking for that kind of gaming and consumer expertise. But then in addition to that, as with every VC who's been on the pod, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of networking. It's a lot of cold reaching out. It's a lot of like figuring out where are the communities of very, very ambitious founders, where are they living, where are they building, and how might you meet those founders. I think it always helps when you have been a founder because you kind of have an idea of where those folks are. So I can relate potentially to kind of that 0 to 1 moment. So I think it's a constant evolution, and then frankly it's a lot of referrals. It's like founders that we've worked with often refer us to other folks that they know, that are building, and that's the kind of evolution.
I wonder, so like, since like I feel like a lot of people would source from, since you're YC alumni, a lot of like YC companies or other, call it like other, um for example, your co-founder are coming from like Riot Games, so like maybe it was like people in their network. How do you, I guess, like funnelize or like creating a system towards like the inbound outbound deals? And for like the outbound companies, like I wonder what would be the selection benchmark that you guys are using to like actually actively outbound to someone?
Yeah, I mean, so for sure, we're close with the YC community, having done YC. We kind of always look at founders there, and keep close with the partners. There's also a lot of like other awesome accelerators that we pay attention to, like HF0, and we always looking for new places where founders are hacking and building, and that actually also might be hackathons. And I think part of my background and experience as more of a kind of outsider to Silicon Valley, more of a contrarian viewpoint, is that you don't have to be a Stanford grad who's worked at Stripe to be backed by us. Like, we actually look for founders who are not necessarily coming out of those more traditional kind of tech companies, and they're more like 17 and they've been building on Discord in their bedroom, and they suddenly have 200,000 people on a server. Actually, they have a plan. And so I think I certainly try and occupy like weird corners of the internet to like find where are these special people who are just hacking, building, and have like exceptional ambition. So I think that criteria wise, we're looking at certainly like, why are you, this is sort of perhaps generic criteria, but like, why are you the best person to build this business, and why now? Like, what have you been doing? What is your background, your passion? Like, how do you know Discord or like Fortnite so intimately, etc.? And who are these early users? And I think being able to talk with massive conviction about who they are, and then huge ambition to build a venture scale company. A lot of startups I don't think should have venture backing. But we're looking for people who show that level of ambition, for sure. That's obviously how our model works. Yeah.
Totally. I wonder, so I want to also double click on like the consumer founder who are like tapping into like the gaming expertise from you guys. So like I've also tried with like the Kudos founders. So, like, I feel like that's a really unique company because they're like technically a fintech company that can help
Exactly.
you realize which credit card that you're using. What would be your advice for founder like this? They are building a traditional product, but maybe they're like leveraging some sort of like gaming philosophy or game theory to like create addictive product.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we spent all day meeting founders who are doing this and looking for founders who are doing this. And Kudos is an awesome example of, maxing your credit card points is a game
Mhm.
that millions of people play every single day. So it's like, what are the other games that people are playing? Learning languages, learning instruments, like learning, like, better intimacy with your partner, whatever it is. Like, there's an element of play within
Mhm.
education, like fintech, shopping, health. So we're always looking for folks that are trying to apply game dynamics and game design to everyday consumer experiences outside of gaming. And I think there's so much you can do there to build highly kind of ritualistic products that bring you kind of fun and joy every day. And that is about, it's more than just kind of badges
Mhm.
uh, and like levels, but it's like, the path to mastery, like the sense of progression, like is it multiplayer, is it single player? And so we love chatting with founders on this and think that, some of the biggest venture outcomes in the next 4 to 5 years are going to be built by consumer founders who leverage game design. And a lot of that is driven just by the next generation consumer behavior. They're growing up on a very different internet to us. It is much more multiplayer. It is more community owned and community driven. So how are you building new types of experiences that will obviously leverage AI in some capacity?
Mhm.
And on that point, like Altera is another fantastic portfolio company of ours that is building, AI agents that can play Minecraft with you initially, Minecraft. And I think that we won't distinguish between whether we're in a group chat that has an AI agent that perhaps keeps the group chat alive, or whether it is or isn't AI. And so I think that type of interaction, you'd call it like NPCs from gaming, or digital goods, like we saw that kind of start to bubble up with crypto, and I don't think that's going to be gone forever. Like that is coming back, and we still look at crypto companies, and we still are very excited about digital goods and ownership, and how you people will take these behaviors from games and bring them into our everyday life experiences.
I wonder, like, so what are some, I guess, like the for like a Kudos or like the other company you were talking about, like can you maybe use one of your portfolio to walk us through like how do you maybe meet the founder and what were like the quick like evaluation process that um lead you to like invest in the company?
Yeah, I mean, so with Altera, they were part of Speedrun, and we've been introduced to the founders as part of that program, and very quickly realized that they checked all of our patron founder criteria of just really understanding their audience, having massive, massive ambition, and kind of the right time as well. So that was it just being a partnership of just three. We to the founders, joy to their ears. Like we move very quickly with high conviction. So it's not waiting around for endless different ICs. It's quick, let's move, and we want to partner with you, and we believe in you. And I think that is one of the best gifts that you can give to a founder is a conviction and quick decisions. So I think Altair is a good example of that. Other folks, sort of thinking, who's still in stealth that I can't speak about? People come from, other VCs might recommend folks to us who have been angels or pre-seed. We get a lot of really interesting inbound from operators or execs at other companies that see something and know that we might be able to help with our expertise. And so that's another kind of example of how some recent founders have come to us.
For sure. I don't know if this is your company or like maybe other partners company. So I saw a company called Hamil. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
pronouncing it right.
doing
I've
this.
seen yeah, so I've seen a lot of like people are building like similar products who are like capturing the best like gamers moments. And then like I remember in the NFT era, I personally knew some friends created um like Twitch moments to as NFT to sell to like other people. So I feel
Mhm.
like in this seems like a really competitive space. For a company in like a competitive space who there's like a lot of founders who are doing the a similar product, how would you kind of like quickly evaluate? Like what would be your evaluation process to move forward with Brina or like these other founders in a similar space?
Yeah, I mean, like, combination of like, does the founder have X factor? Like, and that's difficult to really describe. But I think Brina and all of our founders display what we think is a sort of certain X factor of a combination of kind of like talent, ambition, perseverance, and just they're the right person to build this business. And then in addition to that, it's sort of like track record. We pride ourselves on doing a lot of references. So we will do significant, maybe 10 plus references per each founder, which I think is pretty unusual for a seed stage fund.
Mhm,
Um, off our own backs, like tracking down people that might know them, and making sure that we feel comfortable with them. The other thing we do is we spend a lot of time with people before we decide to invest. So yes, we move quickly with conviction, but ideally, within the week, we want to see you multiple times
mhm,
in person. We'll fly and meet you, or fly you here, either way. But I think we're going to be in this kind of partnership for 10 plus years. So we really try and like get that FaceTime in up front to validate, the X factor criteria, the ambition, and the fact that they truly know this initial audience and know how they're going to expand beyond that. Um, yeah.
I wonder, so like um you mentioned like for example the 10 plus reference track. I feel like it definitely is very impressive, but how do you pick like which person to chat to? Is that like just this person's like prior boss, coworker, and like what kind of question would you kind of ask people to get a sense of like this person's strength and weakness?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think starting point is always like, are there any mutual connections?
Mhm,
Do I know someone? Is it someone from Discord that I might have worked with? Is it someone from Riot or XYZ? And we're looking for people that worked with the founder, whether as a direct employee, whether as a colleague, whether different roles, so that you can get different perspectives of like direct report, manager, coworker. And some of those are cold outreach, and some of
mhm,
those are like actually warm connections. And I think you're in those calls, you're just looking for a character assessment. Like, we've made an opinion having met this founder, but are we right? And can we see a pattern that we are right across multiple people? And so a lot of the questions there are thinking about, um, how, beyond the obvious of like, how would you describe their character, is getting specific examples of where they may have demonstrated, particular knowledge, ambition. Like, have they always wanted to be a founder? Like, why are they a founder? Um, would you work with them again? That's another kind of good question to vet that they are like great talent. But I think it's a really important step in validating your own criteria that this is the right decision to make.
mhm. Um, I wonder, like, so you mentioned about like the 8 factors. So I definitely feel like maybe people have different like opinions on that. Like, so like for you, can you define maybe 3 like benchmark that you're thinking like consider as like it factor? Obviously, like if the founder is most people will say, oh, are they tenacious? Are they have they like achieve something that's impossible before? And what would be like the benchmark that you're using to like evaluate a founder if they have like the it factor?
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I would say one is like a very deep understanding of the audience that they are serving. Like, that
Mhm,
initial audience is really important to us, because we need to know that in the very near term, they'll be able to deeply understand who those people are. Tonic Music is a great example of this. Rose and Ray, the co-founders, Rose, second-time founder, Ray, famous violinist. They deeply understand people who are practicing music every day and need to practice music, not learn music, practice. And that is a great example of really knowing a specific audience and niche. Second is demonstrating that you want to take this all the way. Like, you have big ambition. Like, this isn't just a small business. There's big ambition to build something really kind of culture defining. And then lastly, I would say is, I guess, having this sort of sense of curiosity, because, and perhaps this is more personal, Brian and Jason might say something separate for their third criteria of X Factor, but to me, it's like, if you have a constant sense of curiosity, you're always going to ask your users, you're always going to question your product managers, you're always going to question like the market or what investors' advice is giving you. And I think figuring out how to retain curiosity is a great skill in building a startup and just generally in life. Like, ask yourself questions, ask your users questions, your customers, your team, your investors. And so I think founders stand out to me when they do ask good questions or demonstrate that they have this innate sense of curiosity. Yeah.
Amazing. I want to be mindful of the time, although I can ask like 1,000 questions regarding community or like fund selection criteria, but I want to be mindful of the time. We're jumping into a quick 1-minute fire round for you. So um first of all, like I'm gonna since like you have lived in so many different countries, which country you feel like you most like resonate yourself with and why?
Oh, I mean, I'm English, but I grew up in Hong Kong, born and raised. So Hong Kong has a very, very special place in my heart, and would maybe say Hong Kong.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite book?
Gosh, my favorite book, I suppose, changes every day. I'm reading, depending on what I'm reading. I'll say that, not to be incredibly like Silicon Valley cliche, but I did love Atlas Shrugged. That was a great book that I read in high school. And then maybe I'll pick one that's on display. I really love this book. Cal Henderson, the co-founder of Slack, recommended this to me. It's called The Box, and it is all about the history of the shipping container. And I very much enjoyed this book.
I love that you are showing us a physical book, and I love physical books. I just feel like nowadays they're they're such an underrated item. But anyway, who is on your personal board of advisors?
My husband, who's also a VC over at Acrew.
Shout out to
Shout out Acrew. My parents, who I'm very close to, and then gosh, I would probably say my other close friends in San Francisco, Alice Lloyd George, who runs another VC Rogue, and Yasmin Razavi, who's a partner over at Spark, are very constant, like, source of friendship and good advice.
What's a piece of advice that you have heard that kind of impacted you the most?
I'll use the kind of end snippet of, I suppose, like a Churchill quote, which is, it's about the courage to continue that counts. And I think that is just so important as a founder. You have to have immense courage to continue on your journey every single day and not give in and evolve. And I think you can reinvent yourself and as a CEO, as a leader, as a investor, as a philanthropist, and you just have to have the courage to get back up and continue.
For sure. I think that's a really great message. Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Pardon? Oh, who would I invite to a dinner party? Well, I mean, Salvador Dali always hosted incredible dinner parties. So it'd be great to have him. It would be great to have, I I'm reading Jean Le Carre right now, Constant Gardener, so he's great. I'm also rereading 0 to 1, so Peter Thiel might also be interesting. So I'll take those three.
Amazing dinner. Where can we find you outside of work?
I'm a big swimmer, so USF swimming
Wow.
pool.
I love that.
So
That's a first.
come pitch me at the pool. Or I guess where else? You know, on Hacker News.
Amazing, Amber.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Awesome. Amber, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And why don't we give your book a shout out? Like, where can people find you and your book?
Hello, this is my book.
Yeah,
uh,
please do. I
this
saw
book,
you have interviewed some great people.
yeah, it's
Tyler Rose was on the pod. I love him. I feel like, I admire him like from afar mostly.
right,
So
right.
I don't want to be like, oh my God. But anyway,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
I'm a fan of him. But yeah.
I guess we're kind of coming up to time, but super quickly, one of the books that influenced me most in my founder journey to VC was Founders at Work by Jess Livingston, co-founder of Y Combinator. Incredible book, series of interviews with Silicon Valley leaders, and I very much kind of was inspired by that formula. So this book is an interviews book. There's a lot of good community building advice in there, not from me, but from everybody built incredible, $1 billion plus companies. So yeah, Communities book on Amazon.
Amazing. Well, Amber, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Giving the audience a little bit of shout out. Hi, Joe. Anyway, sorry.
Hello, Joe.
Sorry in the end. But anyway. Okay.
Thank you so much, Grace. Take care.
Let me just quickly end